Welcome back to Making the Madness on YouTube. And it is preview time. We're previewing the CBS Sports Classic. It's a tradition unlike any other. The Saturday before Christmas, we get four teams putting it all on the line for the CBS Sports Classic Championship. This year we've got Kentucky playing UCLA and North Carolina playing the Ohio State University. It should be a fun matchup. We've got four, I think, very interesting teams this year. I would say that's how I would classify it. You've got kind of a lot of young teams, a lot of teams that, like North Carolina and Kentucky are heavily freshman reliant. Ohio State's kind of inexperienced, but they're kind of fitting into different roles. And you've got UCLA who's essentially running it back. So you've got kind of four different teams when looking at this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have a UCLA team who a lot of people were pretty high on in the preseason, including myself, and then they lost to San Diego State in the opener, but that was more of how good San Diego State is than what UCLA isn't.
Yeah, and the other thing about that game, too, is like UCLA was down two rotation pieces in that game, Jalen Hill, Johnny Juzang. So, like, you talk about that loss, okay, but realistically speaking, if those two are playing, I'd still say San Diego State maybe wins the game, but it would have certainly been closer. I think if the two teams played same court on tomorrow night, it would be, I'd say San Diego State wins by 4, but it would be a close game, like a much closer game than it was in that one. So UCLA certainly a good team. Kentucky, not so much. They're 1-4 this year. Just a brutal start for the Wildcats, but they started to figure things out in the second half against Notre Dame. Do you think they continue to figure it out and maybe pull off the upset against UCLA?
I think they'll play better. I don't think they'll win this game. I just think UCLA is too good. It's just a rough matchup for them. A super experienced UCLA team with a starting five of Tiger Campbell, who's a redshirt sophomore, Chris Smith, who's a senior, Jaime Jaquez, who's a sophomore, Johnny Juzang, who's a sophomore, and Jalen Hill, who is also a redshirt junior. So that's a pretty experienced lineup you have there against Kentucky. But John Calipari said he's going to start playing Terrence Clark at the 4 or at the 1. And that's something similar he did with Tyreek Evans back in the day when he was still at Memphis and that team was struggling. He put Tyreek Evans on the ball more and they really started to succeed. I don't see that working out the same way in this game. I do think Kentucky will fall to UCLA. UCLA's been kind of interesting this season. Obviously losing to San Diego State early. They won by over Marquette by 9, a team that just went on the road and beat Creighton the other day. And like Mick Cronin teams, all of them, they play slow. But this Mick Cronin team, they're ranked 14th in offensive efficiency on KenPom right now. I'm pretty sure that would be a record for a Mick Cronin-led team. And they're 42nd in defense. They're usually top 15 in defensive efficiency. So I'm wondering if it's kind of an anomaly right now or if this is what it's really going to be and their defense gets better and their offense stays the way it is. If that's the case, UCLA is a dark horse Elite Eight team, honestly. But in this game, Chris Smith should be able to dominate. Jalen Hill, I'm curious to see what Olivier Sarr can do on him defensively. They'll probably have to put Isaiah Jackson on him. And Jaime Jaquez has become one of the best players in the Pac-12. He was a glue guy last year, but now he's just a really good player, shooting 45% from deep, much improved from his 31% from last season. The Bruins should be able to win this game by 6 or 7.
Yeah, and the thing I find interesting about this is you kind of have this kind of similar personnel. You've got an athletic big guy for UCLA. It's Jalen Hill, Cody Riley, both of them essentially. And you've got Olivier Sarr and you've got Isaiah Jackson up front for Kentucky. You've got Kentucky probably should play 4 guards and have B.J. Boston or Keon Brooks be the 4. Whether Keon Brooks is healthy for this game is a different story, but theoretically he matches up really well with Chris Smith inside at that 4 spot. And then you've got like Tiger Campbell's solid. He's not an elite shooting guard by any means. Like he's just more of a facilitator. You've got good guard pieces. Jaquez has really taken a step forward. Jules Bernard, Jai Juzang for UCLA, and then for Kentucky, you've got Boston Clark. It's a really similar matchup team wise, but UCLA is just older right now, more experienced, and I think playing better right now. If you told me play this game February 19th as opposed to December 19th, I might consider taking Kentucky. I probably would take Kentucky because I think Kentucky will be better, but right now there's no indication for Kentucky being the better team, so I'll take UCLA to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the end of that Kentucky Notre Dame game was a bit of an anomaly itself because you look at what happened there. Kentucky came back, but Notre Dame has turned the ball over a ridiculous amount this season. One of the worst teams with turnover percentage in the country. I think that really came to bite them, and I just think Notre Dame's not a very good team. But Kentucky's also struggled with similar issues turning the ball over, and UCLA likes forcing turnovers. So that could be a big issue for Kentucky in this game. Terrence Clark, Davion Mintz, BJ Boston, they have to be careful with the ball.
Yeah, they gotta be better with the ball. They can't turn the ball over. UCLA, I think you mentioned the KenPom numbers. I think they'll get worse offensively. It's hard to stay at that rate, but they'll certainly get better defensively. I think this is a really good defensive team. They've got the personnel to be a talented defensive team. So, like UCLA, like if they could easily get this game out in the open court and force a lot of turnovers if Kentucky's not careful. So they'll have to watch the turnovers for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I just think the experience of UCLA is going to probably be what wins in this game.
I agree. I'll take UCLA by 4. That would be my pick.
Yeah, I'll take UCLA by 6.
All right, so we both have UCLA winning this. North Carolina, Ohio State. I assume we probably have the same pick.
Yeah, that's probably safe to say. I can explain why I'm going to take North Carolina in this game. That's who you have, right?
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of reasons to be skeptical on Ohio State, but one reason right now, they are super short-handed in the front court right now. They are missing Seth Townsend, who, it seems like he's never going to play. And then Kyle Young's fine. He's good. But then you have E.J. Liddell, who's been one of their better players. He's out with mono. So it doesn't sound like he's going to be playing in this game either. He's out tomorrow against Purdue. They're going to lose that game. You'll know by the time you're hearing this video probably. But I think they lose at Purdue, which is tomorrow in this case when we're recording it. But yeah, I don't love Ohio State. They've been really up and down at times. They beat Cleveland State by 6, a team that got blown out by like 45 against Ohio University a couple weeks ago. But overall, Dwayne Washington's the only consistent shooter on the team, along with Justin Arns. Those are the only two guys who can really shoot. And then defensively, they're going to get destroyed by the bigs of UNC. You have Day'Ron Sharp, who I think is the best of the bunch, and Garrison Brooks, Armando Bacot. They will feast on Ohio State's lack of bigs in this contest and beat them pretty handily, I think by double digits.
Yeah, I'm not going to go quite to double digits, but I do think North Carolina wins the game somewhat handily. And you look at this team like C.J. Walker, Dwayne Washington. That's a good 1-2 combination. Justice Sewing's good at the 4. Kyle Young's like a good glue guy, big man. But the issue is they're not really like North Carolina. They have 4 big men that are better inside than any of the players for Ohio State. Like Walker Kessler's the legitimate 4th big man for North Carolina. He's a better inside scorer than Kyle Young. I would say that. Like he's just more talented. He's better. So North Carolina is certainly going to dominate inside. The only real chance I think Ohio State has to win is like if C.J. Walker, Dwayne Washington can really force some turnovers. Uh, they're not particularly high steal, high get out and transition guys, but that's really I think the only way because like Caleb Love, R.J. Davis, they're both freshmen. They're both really good, but that's the only area where you can say, okay, if you're looking at the game and Ohio State wins, you're looking at how it happened. It's probably because you get a Caleb Love bad game, you get R.J. Davis playing a bad game. If those things happen, maybe Ohio State can win. But I just think on paper, North Carolina is just a better team.
Yeah, and we haven't seen a good Caleb Love game so far. They've all been bad. He's been absolutely brutal so far. That has to turn around, or he's going to be back at UNC next year because there's no way anybody drafts him in the first round the way he's playing right now. He's been a total disaster. But I think this is the kind of game where he can turn it around. He's a really good athlete. Wasn't regarded as like an elite shooter, but a solid shooter coming in. R.J. Davis has definitely been pretty good, though. A really good shooter there with Love. But X factor here is Andrew Platek. He's been a guy that, it fit the mold of a Jalen Coleman Lands, Jonah Antonio guy where they're like, hey, he's a shooter, but he didn't make them. Now he's making them. So he's shooting over 40% from deep this season. He's a senior. He looks very confident right now, which is something he lacked last year. You think about the Duke game where he missed 4 late free throws in a row. This year he looks different. He could be the X factor in a game like this where UNC doesn't have the experience in the guard spot, and Playtech could come up huge.
Yeah, and going back to Caleb Love, he's been I don't think he's been as terrible as like it's being advertised. Like I still think he's been solid. It's just like we maybe had too high of expectations for Caleb Love because he was like a fringe top 20 recruit. Uh, I think in the final rankings or something like that. So expecting him to come in, I think a lot of people were expecting him to come in and be superstar point guard, and he's been like he's definitely not been that, but he's been solid, and I think he's kind of someone that as the year goes on is going to get better. He's going to start making shots. He's not going to shoot 16% from three. I think he's better than KC Morcell. So like I think this could be like a regression to the mean or a progression to the mean type game for Caleb Love, where he maybe goes off, scores 25, hits 4 or 5 threes, and it could be that this game here.
Yeah, the turnovers are the most concerning thing for me with Love. He's turning it over 4 times a game. You just can't do that at this level. He's going to lose minutes at some point if that continues because turnovers pile up, and when you're turning it over half a dozen or half the 10 times, that's a problem.
Yeah, he needs to fix those things, but overall, I think he's a good player. So we both have UCLA and North Carolina winning, which guarantees that Kentucky and Ohio State will win, essentially.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. That will wrap it up for this edition of the Making the Madness YouTube segment featuring the CBS Sports Classic.